Hey everybody, I'm Marc Dunham and welcome back from the holidays. I'm the chef over at the Atherton and Ranchers Club, and today we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. And in fact, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions throughout the whole spring. I'm sure that some of you, including myself, have made some New Year's resolutions, and we always seem to have some trouble sticking to them. So what we're going to do is talk about some new food choices. I'm going to rotate some new products in, some new cooking techniques, and some new just food items for you to choose from. So hopefully that'll help you accomplish your goals, whether they're short-term or long-term. So join us right here on Play With Your Food as we tackle those New Year's resolutions. All right, welcome back everybody. Today I've got some locally grown baby beets, which are already in the oven, with the beet tops that have been harvested. So before we get into the discussion about what I'd like to talk about just eating habits and better choices and things, I want to get these guys in the pan because they're going to take a little bit of time to cook. What you need to know about baby beet tops, or even beet tops at that, the longer the stem you have, or the bigger the stem you have, the longer you're going to have to cook them. So what I did was trim the stem in because these leaves are fairly tender. We won't have to cook them for very long, but if you've got big, bulky adult beet tops or even big mustard greens or anything like that, you have to cook them a little bit longer. But these are smaller guys. People always ask me, what do I do with these things when you go in the grocery store and see them? Well, we're about to show you. So what I like to do real quick is just give them just a rough chop. So we just line them up, put them on top of each other, and cross cut them into about 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch segment. I've got a pan over here getting warm. I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan, and let that heat up a touch. And the first thing that's going to go in is a little bit of sliced garlic. So as soon as that starts to cook, which should only be about a minute or so, we're going to put some greens in. So that's already starting to get a little bit of sizzle. I'm going to put just a tiny pinch of salt and let that start warming up. All right, so there we go. We got some action going on in here. And again, with garlic, you want to try to cook it fairly slowly. You don't want to get it so hot to where it burns and gets black, because then it gets really bitter. And whatever you have else in the pan, it's going to make that taste bitter, and you can't ever get it out. So be gentle with the garlic. All right, so the heat's getting a little bit hotter. So I'm going to turn down the burner so I don't scorch it. All right, so that's starting to soften up. I'm going to go ahead and add all of these beet greens. Same amount of oil. Notice that there's probably only about a 1/2 teaspoon of oil in there. So not a whole lot of fat in the dish. A little bit of salt. Don't be afraid to put salt on your food. Most people have too much sodium in their diet because they're eating too many processed foods, not because they're using kosher salt on raw food. All right, a little bit of pepper. And I'm just going to stir these around just until they look like they soften up a touch. And then to give them another little bit of flavor, we're going to put a little bit of white wine. What that's going to do is going to help steam the greens, and it's also going to add a little bit of acidity to the dish, which is going to complement the baby beets that are roasting in the oven. All right, so those have softened up a little bit. Inexpensive white wine. Don't use expensive stuff. That was about 1.5 tablespoons. Make sure that when you're doing stuff like this, make sure that all of your ingredients are actually in the bottom of the pan and not coming up on the side of the pan. All right, so those have gone in. I'm going to turn down the heat just a touch. I'm going to pull out these baby beets, and we're going to talk about what these guys look like and taste like. All right, so here are the baby beets. Now imagine these guys with the stems and the tops. These all were one piece. What I did was trim off some of the tops, kept the leaves, then rinse these under water and kept the skin on. If you can't find baby beets at the store, get larger ones. You can basically do the same thing, but you'll just have to trim them down. And so after they roast and they're nice and tender, and how do you figure out if they're tender and ready to go? Stick a paring knife or a fork. If they're tender and it goes all the way through, it's done. It's really that simple. What you want to do is to be able to pull off the skin, because you don't want to eat the skin, But you'll notice that I left the tops on, which is the interesting part because the beets themselves are nice and soft, and by leaving the tops on and getting them crispy, it's almost like a beet chip. So you've got this textural contrast between the soft beets and then the beet tops. If you don't like the beet tops, if you taste them one time, you don't like them, just trim them all the way off and do the same thing and roast them. And notice also that I'm leaving the tail portion on too. All right, so we're going to get all these cleaned up really quickly. And these are really pretty because they're different colors. I've got red beets and I've got golden beets. All right, so these guys are pretty hot, which is why I'm using a towel. And I'm also using a towel because beets have very potent color pigments, and they will stain your hands. The bigger ones are worse than the smaller ones. But you'll want to either put on a pair of gloves or use a towel to get this stuff off. In terms of time, I'll address that on the recipe online. But these roasted for about 35 minutes. Obviously, the bigger the beet, the longer you're going to have to roast them. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of olive oil. We've got the beets. In goes the olive oil. I'm going to season the beets with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and to add a different dimension in terms of flavor without adding a bunch of calories, we're going to zest a lemon. If you haven't bought one of these or seen one of these before, it's a zester or a microplane. Go out and buy one. They're not too expensive, and you can get a lot of different zest off citrus and things like that that are really delicious, and they incorporate another level of flavor without adding too much salt or fat or anything. So you just run it down, and it's very, very efficient. And you can see it just pulled off the outside of the zest and not the pith. So we're going to put a little bit of the zest in, so you'll get the lemon aromatic and the flavor without the lemon acid, which is the difference between that and lemon juice. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is toss these beets in the olive oil, the salt, the pepper, and the little bit of lemon zest. Let these sit for a second. I want to address a couple things while these beet greens finish up. You know, obesity is on the rise, and I don't want to sit here for the rest of these episodes and beat nutrition down or over your head and be a Bible beater about this. But the fact of the matter is obesity is on the rise. What is more scary to me is that obesity is on the rise with kids, and I think that we can do a better job as adults being better role models, and part of that means just making better decisions. I've done this long enough to where I think I know that part of the reason why a lot of people don't make better decisions is they just don't have access to those decisions. They don't know how to cook better. If they knew how to cook better, they would provide their family with better choices. So what I want to do is, I'm not a registered dietitian. If you've got some major health issues, you need to contact a doctor or a registered dietitian. What I want to do is, I want to help you learn to cook better. Primarily, it's got to taste good. If it doesn't taste good, I don't care what diet plan you're on, you're not going to stick with it. So what I want to do is I want to provide you with the choices to learn how to cook better, to make it tasty, and the end result is you've got tasty food that's also a little bit healthier for you. So that's all I want to address with that. Okay, so now those beet greens have cooked down, and I'm ready to go. This can be served as an appetizer. It can be served as a vegetable side. It can be served with or without the beet greens. So if you taste these guys and you don't necessarily like the beet greens, then don't add them next time. What we like to do is just put the beet greens down. And we do similar things like this for appetizers at the Ranchers Club with Farmers Market and things like that. Which, by the way, we have a new vegetarian section on the menu, so come in and check it out. So there go the greens. They've been cooked with a little bit of white wine, garlic, a little bit of salt and pepper, good healthy olive oil, and then these lovely little baby beets that have been roasted. Super easy to do, not expensive because they're vegetables, delicious to eat, nice to look at, and they're good for you. So join us next week right here on Play With Your Food.